You know, you got a taste of Christo talking about his work. You're in for a treat, because this is a man for all these years has had to convince people. He just reminded me he even had to convince Japanese farmers to understand the work and want the work, and he's very good at this. So we're going to talk about the project at Lake Iseo, which is a glacial lake at the foot of the Alps, which happened at the end of June, beginning of July 2016, forgive me, good God. 2016, and the film that was made about it. And I was lucky enough to spend 5 days there. And it was an extraordinary experience. After you got past the thronging crowds at the beginning on the piece of walking on water from the mainland to the island, and you got out where you were with the sea and with the Alps, it was an extraordinary feeling walking on the pontoons. But every day more people came, more and more and more, until in the end I was trampled. I lost a toe and the whole 9 yards. But there were 1.2 million people. Was that a surprise?
Usually the rural project have less. This is a rural project. The urban project like the Reichstag have 5. The Gates 4 million people. They're in a city that people live anywhere. And we try to. The project, they all control. On that project, we know exactly how many walking, because there was the limit. There was the limit. There was the limit of how many people should stay in a floating pier, and we don't like to crowd this floating pier to have too many people. So even sometimes there was enormous amount of people. Sometimes there was like almost 100,000 people a day.
Yeah, so that was, and that's part of the drama in this film.
Yes, because you know the first is the little town of there are two. There the Lake Iseo, and the 2 locations where the project can access is from the mainland and east coast of Lake Iseo, and from Solzano, and from there you go to island of Monte Isola. And of course, Monte Isola have about 2,000 people, and they have no bridge to go to the mainland. And they was taking traghetto, a little boat, non-stop, even in the middle of the night, can call, the boat can pick up you. And for 16 days, this is the reason we did that project, for 16 days, the people from the Monte Isola, the tallest island and salt water in Europe, they can walk to mainland, Solzano. And that was this is why we have a 2.5 kilometer, I say in kilometer, 2.5 kilometer pedestrian street in the Monte Isola in Solzano, and 3 kilometers of floating piers.
Yeah, and so when you realized how many people were coming, that there were so many people, you got very upset. You were trying to deal with the city.
Security, no, with security. Now, very important things. This is not lake of few feet. These lakes, they're glacier, meaning that the depth of this lake between the Monte Isola and Solzano, the mainland, is 300 feet depth. And the depth between the Monte Isola and the little island of Sao Paulo is near 700 feet depth, meaning that you see these walking piers, was they 16 meters wide, they have no rail.
No rails, can you imagine
rail.
This? In
and
America?
Of course, this is why there was the sign, like they're 10 feet totally horizontal, and each side 2.5 feet sloping like a beach. This is why the waves of the lake, water come to the fabric, and the fabric, this is why they have this incredible change of color to the very brilliant yellow to the wet orange from the wet of the water. And this is why that was very important to have this, our guardian of the project, these young people with uniform, they were staying on the edge of the floating pier to not happen any jumping in the water and falling down.
I mean, but there were some pretty hair-raising moments, like the day that the fabric arrived to put on the pontoons was a horrible storm.
Yes, and they have this special storm from the mountain coming, And of course, the drama, we cannot stop, working non-stop around the clock and until, I think, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's always that. All our projects involve the exciting part, and this is why I like to do this project, because it's the real world. In the film, I'm talking to children I think in the Queens, and try to explain to the children that we're dealing with the real things. No virtual reality, no computer images. They're the real wet, the real heat, the real wind, all this the real, and the real kilometer, and they're not thinking about walking kilometer. You should walk. And not only that project, all our project, it demands some kind of physical contact with the things. And if you don't like to that, if you like to go not offending museum, an air-conditioned place, calm, silent, this project, they're not that order.
And you used to talk about how it was absurd in Iseo. People were walking like 3 miles, 5 miles,
Yeah.
and for nothing. They were going nowhere, right?
Yeah, but that is also the most incredible thing. I never believed that. They was not going to buy something or to visiting somebody. They really was to walking. And because you can see in the film, it's showing in movie theater here, film forum, you can see that there was the cubes. Before we put our Dahlia yellow fabric, we install some foam who make the things a little softer, that you can really feel the motion of the water. Actually, you feel like you're on the top of the balloon. Basically, you move in a very strange way, not like in a boat, not shaking like a boat. And this is probably make the people very desire. Many of them remove their shoes and socks, and they walk barefooted.
Sure, and there were baby carriages.
Yes.
There was one guy who was stretched out like Jesus Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
There were couples all over the place. There was a wedding.
And of course, the project was visiting in the night, and we have a very nice, was very extraordinary help to have a special lighting come from Los Angeles, that they kind of like a suitcase, put it up and became a light pole and was lit, and that people can walk in the middle of the night.
Right, but you know, there's so in this film, it's very different than the other films before, because there are shots of how beautiful this is at the very end as you're taking off in the helicopter before it's going to be dismantled. But there's very little of the interaction of the people. This is really a film about the process and about you. It's from your point of view. So how important is process as an art?
No, really, am I talking about many years ago? Actually, in 1961, Jeanne-Claude and myself met David and Al Mezels in Paris. And we became like a family, brothers. And I give all the carte blanche to Albert and David to film all our projects. And they did many films, and they have their own way to see it. David passed away in '85 after the Pont Neuf, and Al passed away more recently after Gates. And I was alone with nobody to do the things, but of course we have photographer to photograph the floating pier, but the same way it was important to have some moving record. And Vladimir, my nephew, hired many cameramen, young and old, to film anywhere the activity in the project. And we have these 700 hours of material, and we have who will do the film. And Vladimir have a friend, documentary movie maker in Bulgaria, and also living here. He was living in the United States, Andrei Paunov, who really accept to go to 700 hours of film. And we give him the rights. I'm not movie maker. I cannot be involved with that. I am involved with project. And it's carte blanche, and this is Andrei's idea how these 700 hours arrive at that stage. And of course, they're not talking. Actually, they're the real things. Many people do not know what's happened. And this is probably revealing that intricate human drama, discussion and screaming and a lot of unpleasant things, and I'm on all my stages. But this is the reality, the true story.
Well, his name was Andrei Paunov, and he's a very important documentary filmmaker.
Yeah.
And the Maisels, they did genre films. It was kind of smart. Like the Running Fence, they did a cowboy movie with ranchers and an illegal act.
Surrounded Island,
and
the Paris Project.
And the Paris Project was a love story because you and Jeanne-Claude had met in Paris in 1958. But this one, it's very much about getting under your skin, what it's like to take on a monumental project like this, the agony and the ecstasy, and man, it's nakedly there. I think, you have no problem just opening yourself up to show all this.
But not for that film. For all the project, I am straightforward. I have, anyway, many people do not know, we did only 23 projects, Jeanne-Claude and myself, for over 50 years. Some complicated, big, some more modest, but we failed to get permission for 47 projects. And this is why I always try to explain to the people, they should not look our work like painting a sculpture. And I'm the educated Marxist and dialectic thinker, they should see what the project is. And I always use the example when we did the wrapping of the Reichstag, the first New York Times writer sent was not art critic, was architectural critic. Paul Goldberger, because Reichstag was architecture. If you see what is physically the project, how project have a look like a building highway or bridges, their dimension who is not in the realm of sculpture, three-dimensional sculpture, normal sculpture we see in museum. And our problems is exactly the same things. We're discussing like to building bridges, like to building houses or skyscraper. We go through the same process with the community, with the regulation, with everything. And really, it's a very complex issue who many people who build things in real world and countryside in the city go through that. And we hire the specialists. They're not performance artists. They're very highly expensive pay specialists, lawyers, construction specialists, and all variety of things. And there's no other way to do this project.
Right, and as for that, they take as long as building a skyscraper, maybe a cathedral. I mean, for instance, I think the Gates was 28 years.
26.
26, and Reichstag 28.
25 years.
25, okay. But because you have to persuade the community.
Yeah, no, because I said everything in the world is owned by somebody. There are no square meter do not belong to somebody. Always there will be who owns that space. Can be communities, the city, can be some governmental agency, sometimes can be entire nation. That is the case of Reichstag. The Reichstag was owned by entire nation because it belonged to 600 million Germans, and fortunately they elected about 680 million Germans. They elected 600 deputies in the Bundestag, in the parliament, and the parliament expressed what the things is there. And this is why the project was dealing in the same case. And when finally we get the permission for the Reichstag project, come to the full debate in the parliament of the nation. The first time in history of art. And not only was curious things, we defeated the prime minister, the chancellor, who was against the project. Even they have a majority of in the Congress, in the parliament, but this happened that many members of his party switched to vote for the wrapping of the Reichstag.
So that's moving mountains.
Yeah, moving mountains, yes.
But Lake Iseo was different. Now, it was the first project after Jeanne-Claude died in 2009, who had been your partner from the very beginning, the general. She was a general's daughter who could get things done. And she had died in 2009, and so this project actually came together very fast once you decided to do it. Why did you decide to do it? It's the first one without...
I tell you, we after Jeanne-Claude passed away, we were finishing the Gates, and we were already working in the Middle East project in Abu Dhabi, with the footage in that project in the film. And And of course, and we're working on another project that we decided to cancel. This is another story. Do not discussing that.
You don't want to discuss it?
You can ask me questions,
because,
but that is deviation of your question.
It's just,
Yeah.
I'm going to go there and then we'll answer my question. Because you had been working on this. Actually, I went with you to audition Rivers for Over the River. And then you decided...
And he's scouting with us when we're looking for the river, yeah.
Right. And then you decided that you were going to drop that project, never to be done. You don't want to go there.
I really... is because this project they're done to be happy. Basically, their enjoyment. I always say this project they're useless. They have nothing to do to be something else except totally irrational. The world can live without this project, but the created moment that it will be for this exclusively small moment of 16 days or 14 days to be on something that will never happen again, it will remember forever. And to arrive at that situation, we need to put everybody in the right spirit between people who owns the land, who is responsible to let us do the project. We signed contract with them, and they are also in harmony with the project. And we don't like to sometimes that people who owns the land, they change landowner, and the landowner can kidnap the project for his own uses. Okay. And this is the land who owns Over the River is belong to American nation. And the land is in the property of United States federal government. And this is why we decided to drop the project.
So you dropped that project, and so how did you come to Lake Iseo, and why did it come together?
Okay, we dropped that project after 2016. And we're working in Abu Dhabi now, enormous long time. And I was thinking I will become 8 years old, and I don't know how much I will live, long year. And I tell to my nephews, look, we have that idea in 1970 for Argentina. We almost did it in Japan in 1996. Fortunately, we have a huge fight with the governor of Tokyo for many reasons, and we canceled the project for them. And because, big parenthesis, this project have sometimes their project designed for particular site. Like the gates was designed for Central Park, the Reichstag was designed for the Reichstag, and some project is a concept, and we need to find right place. For the floating the pier, we need to have a tranquil water, like a lake or the delta of river, any place, not too special things. And this is why the delta of Rio de la Plata was in the early 70s, and the section of Tokyo Bay in Japan, area of Daiba was, again, quiet water in that big bay. And we need to have the quiet water. When that is not happen in Japan, I say my age advancing, and I say that now I love to do that project. And I will do it in place I know very well, because between 1958 and 1964, I lived with Jeanne-Claude in Paris. We spent a lot of time in Italy. We have an exhibition. We did public project in Spoleto and Milano and in Rome. And we have a friends. And I was hoping that we can work out probably to get the permission easily. I know the lakes. And this is why, very right way, we were going there secretly that nobody knows. But again, we have a look that the director of the appointed by the central government in Rome to the water was gentleman, Mr. Falcononi, who was very educated in New York City. Chance was a relative to Nabokov, and of course, and of course, very cultivated man with a lot of interest in art, and he was very helpful to move the project to the permitting process. And really, we did it very, very short time, in 2 years.
Extraordinary. Yeah. Is that extraordinary for you?
Extraordinary.
Yeah. But that made it no less tense.
They chance, they luck. And of course, they luck also with many of our projects. If we work in 26 years for the Gates project, we go to several mayors, they say no, and through these 26 years, I met a gentleman who was interested how we finance project. He invited me to his television to explain and he tried to help us to get the permission. He never was thinking to become a mayor. Now, that gentleman became mayor of New York City.
Bloomberg, of course.
Mr. Bloomberg. And if Mr. Bloomberg was not elected, probably the case would never happen.
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump a little because we don't want to go to the Arc de Triomphe yet, but this is a little taste of it. But I mean, I think with Reichstag, you had tried for all those years, and you couldn't do the Reichstag because it was partially owned by all the occupying people, the Americans, the Soviets, the French, the British. And then when Germany was reunited,
finally
we had a chance. And what they discovered was, I was there when it opened, they talked about every single wound in Germany. They were talking about the Holocaust. They were talking about East versus West. They were scared about what was going to happen. They were going to history and the future. And I think that was the beginning of understanding that having you do a project like that can change a city, can heal a wound. And Bloomberg invited you right after 9/11. Right after 9/11, because New York was depressed and we were scared and paranoid, and he thought that your artwork would lift the city, and by God, it did. It did.
Thank you. Thank you.
But Lake Iseo, so I know you prefer not to have things have meaning. Your works don't have meaning, but it was I was thinking very much when I was there, you were a refugee. While we were there, Italy was being flooded with refugees. They were on their way to Austria and to Germany. Italy got more refugees almost than Greece that year, and they came by boat and they were drowning. Yeah. And you made a piece about walking on water, and it just seemed to me it was very much about that.
I was not related to a refugee, no, really. I should tell you that why there are a lot of water in our works of art. From the Rap Coast in Australia was the big boulders covered with fabric, and a little bay in Sydney, 1.5 miles, with the surf from the ocean and the sharks. The water was going over the wrapped rocks. The ring fence disappeared for 0.5 kilometer, 0.5 mile in Pacific Ocean. Surrounded island and little in Miami, the pond of, there are a lot of water. When the water meet the earth and sturdiness of the earth with the fluidity of the water, they're very linked together. And this is a lot of water in all our project all the time. And this is something is really, the floating pier is related to that pleasure, that probably I love, and many actually, I remember Italian philosopher wrote something like that, that we are made 70% of water. This is why the people was walking there, because they know they are so much made by water. There was no reason the people was coming simply to walk. They was not going to any place.
That's interesting. I never thought of that, but water is
but
central.
all kind of people thinking about that. There was nothing special.
Well, even running fence, which was across across ranch land, it ends with you illegally putting the end of it into the water.
Yes. There was water also with umbrellas. There was the river, Sato River in Japan. We installed 90 umbrellas in the middle of the river. There was no river in California, but there was a little pond. We installed 3 umbrellas in the little pond in Los Angeles County.
But you were a refugee. You were a refugee from Soviet Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell a little bit of that story?
Yes. I know very well because there are so many refugees. I was born in Bulgaria. Actually, my father is half Czech, half Bulgarian. My mother is Bulgarian, Macedonian. I lived during the terrible time of the Second World War II, and of course the communists in power. And I tried to be an artist, and that's another story. How I was going to be an artist, that give everything to my parents, my mother especially. But the question is that I was 21 years old, living in communist Bulgaria, and through all these enormous last years of Stalin, and seeing no any original works of modern art. and I desperately tried to go to visit my relatives in Prague, Czechoslovakia, another communist country. When I arrived there, Hungarian Revolution started. And already I have premonition I will never go back to Bulgaria. I've never been back to Bulgaria since 1956. And of course, I find my way to escape from Prague to Vienna on January 1957, speaking only Bulgarian and Russian, having nobody else except myself, no any relatives, nobody else. But I have an extremely big urgency to go where art is there. And that time, to go to where art is Paris. And I work my way with doing all jobs to surviving, a long, long story. And I arrived in Paris in 1958, in March 1958. And I remember vividly, there was the Algerian War, the general take over Algeria, French general. There was the putsch of generals. There was the French people asked General de Gaulle to come to power. Champs-Élysées was full of tanks and armory. And I find maid's room and a little street just very close to the Arc de Triomphe. And one of the first proposals to do something impossible, who say only like impossible thing, was to wrap Arc de Triomphe in 1962.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much like both the Reichstag and the gates, because this is a moment of crisis in France,
Yeah.
and Macron has his problem with the yellow vests,
Yeah.
and you got the permission.
Yeah, this is something I never believe it. I have only one meeting with the presidency staff and generals. Arc de Triomphe involved a lot of generals, and I was not expecting that we can get the permission so fast, and we have the permission, and it's happened next year.
June, everybody, make your calendars free to go to Paris. Because there's what I didn't know was that they light a fire for the unknown soldier every day.
Yeah, is the Arc de Triomphe was built in the 19th century, but every day there's ceremony at 6 o'clock when the fire of unknown soldier, and of course it's widely used for the president always time bring the dignitary there. There are all kind of ceremony links profoundly with the service of the Republic. That point is very, very symbolically related to the soldier who fell to die after the Tsar was gone, the king was gone.
So in a lot of ways, it's kind of the beating heart of not only Paris, but France. You have, well, you see,
yeah.
all roads lead there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, but also is the hill. It's not flat land, it's in the hill, and is the sign that the lyric conversion all this 12th Avenue, and is the very actually uplifted and is very highly above many buildings. It's the structure built during the early 1840, and of course it was all the ceremony and used for many things, like each time the general demonstration, general activity of the state is happened there, and the president can bring people to the Arc de Triomphe all the time, visitor, dignitary, all variety of services. And for that project, we involve all these different groups of decision makers. But again, it was luck. Luck that and we know that the Yellow Vest was also big decision the president decided to make the project.
So that they're hoping once again that this will lift the spirits,
Yeah,
bring
probably,
people together. Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of extraordinary that art could have that possibility.
But because it's this project, they put it about not absurd, they're totally useless. They have no rational reason to exist, to not make people better or something better. And I think and also some way they're so how put it? They happen not suddenly, because understand it takes so much effort to so many people to do the work. You know, it's need to put together enormous amount of professional people. The community in some way very much involved the things to be realized. It's not something we're arriving and doing like that. And we need to find the right contractors, the right delivery of materials to build a chemistry around the site when the project is happening.
And very often you have to have things like mountain climbers. You will for this.
Yeah, of course. The famous rock climbers from the Chamonix, the Alps in France, who really did. Of course, we have a example that is probably was helpful for Paris, because we did the Pont Neuf in 1985. The city, and also there was a president and mayor of the city, and everybody was very positive with the Pont Neuf story. That probably was helpful that that decision was so positive and happened fast.
Well, one of my images from the Pont Neuf is that people were having black tie dinners on the Pont Neuf when it was wrapped. That was probably not the Arc de Triomphe.
In the Arc de Triomphe, they have visitors. They have about 7,000 visitors a day. You can go inside, and the top of the Arc de Triomphe will be also wrapped floor with these silver-blue colors, and the people will walk in the fabric. But the entire facility, we work like that. The people can go inside to the top of the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah, so there'll be long lines for people to go to the top of the Arc de Triomphe, just as there are long lines and crowds at the Iseo.
No, you go to the tunnel and you go in the middle. And the Arc de Triomphe.
You know, I did a bad thing, which was I didn't bring anything to check the time. I know that...
I am not...
what, do you have a watch?
Yes.
What time is it?
It's 8:10.
8:10. So you think we're ready for questions? I have one more thing to talk about first. So these are the drawings. You're at the drawing stage for the Arc de Triomphe. The film starts with you making the drawings for the
Lake
Iseo.
That, you know, this is the story that they talk about how we financed the project very fast. Physically, I love to draw, put it that way. And love to draw. I study also very fast. When I studied art school in the Academy of Kunst Academy in Bulgaria, they would study architecture, painting, sculpture, even I make a dissection of human body, very much like the 19th century art school. And after 4 years study that, you decided to be specialized, to be painter, sculptor, architect. And I always say, I escaped to the West, and my 4th years, I'm still not decided what I am. And this is why, you understand, this is the many of things I love to do, because I love to do, and I love to draw and using all kind of materials, and it's the process to arrive at the real work, how it should be done. It cannot be happen in the studio in Manhattan. We need to do the life-size stage and secret place to have the real proportion, one-to-one scale, small section of the project. You cannot decide the fabric, the color, the movement, the ropes, all kind of things in the studio. Very much like architect, we need to go through all these steps. And I remember for the Floating Pier, we need to find a little water. Fortunately, we had a German friend who have a castle near Danish border, and his forests have a lake, and we did a life-size stage for the Floating Pier and that lake to find a way how the fabric should work and everything.
And one of the scenes in the film, you're having a big fight with Vladimir about whether to use chain or how heavy the chain should be.
For the sidewalks. we always have fight. If you can see the film on the measles, you should see myself and Jeanne-Claude screaming like we're divorcing to kill each other because you're stupid and I'm things like that. No, really, I live all the time a very critical situation, and I love the people to object and to argue with me and argue with them.
On the other hand, you would yell at her and you would call her chérie while you were yelling at her. And the people who you work with, you've worked with for decades and decades.
Yes.
So The yelling is maybe part of the process.
Yes.
So we have questions here. We're going to go to the question part. I'm going to just look through them. Oh, how do you remain patient during the 30-year process?
But that is you should try to go to see the film, because they have lovely footage in the film of Floating Pier. I always, little child in school, and the Queens asked me, by 7, 8 years old, how I have a patient. And I always use the Jeanne-Claude answer. Jeanne-Claude said, it's not a patient, it's the passion.
That's great. And also, you often have a lot of projects going at the same time.
Yes, we cannot possibly work on only one project, because it would be terrible if nothing happened, and all the time they're woven through that system. Sometimes we work on several projects, sometimes we work only on 2 or 3 projects, but this is how our life is happened like that, and this is very normal. Very much like, and again, back to the analogy, like architect, they work on several projects, and some building is built, some is not built. Yeah.
And you're 83 years old, and you say you always have to have a project you're looking forward to. You always have to have that.
Yeah. I do not like to have usually artists my age have a retrospective. I refuse to do that. I know that the Centre Pompidou will do the exhibition, but they're very, very clever. There will be exhibition about the story of how the Pont Neuf was realized. Pont Neuf documentation exhibition, who come from all our archives, entire story of Pont Neuf project. And the director of the museum, Bizarre Bresten, have an idea that he will make a Christo Jeanne-Claude Parisian years, the title is called, between 1958 and 64, what we did in Paris.
Because in 64, you moved to New York.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say, this is Jeanne-Claude. I come here, I was a refugee, like not normal refugee. I was a real refugee, stateless. Not like not refugee from Syria, Afghanistan. Stateless meaning that I have no nation. I renounce my citizenship, and I live for 17 years. I'm now American citizen, stateless. And of course, Jeanne-Claude always was saying that we arrived here in Manhattan. She was French, but we arrived with a visa for 3 months. And after 3 months, we became illegal aliens for 3 years.
See? And suppose he'd been turned away. So I just want to remind you that, as you can see, the film Walking on Water is at Film Forum right now. So, take advantage. It's a wonderful film. And it's also having national distribution. So from here, Christo goes to Los Angeles.
And San Francisco, yeah.
So, it's bi-coastal. So here's somebody asking, how did you get the idea for the gates?
Okay, very fast. When we arrived here in 1964, we arrived with SS France, and I saw this downtown Manhattan, and I proposed to wrap 2 Lower Manhattan building, number 20 Broadway, in number 12 Exchange Place, tall building. That stayed only like a dream, never happened. To the early in the 60s, when we were living here, already in 70, we tried to do the early 60s, early 70s, we tried to wrap number 1 Times Square. We almost did it, but never happened, that project. And now in the 70s, we were working in the Valley Curtain in Colorado, and the Rainforest in Northern California, and we was coming back to Manhattan, and Jeanne-Claude and myself, we saw that Manhattan was not so much about the building, it's about how much people walk on the sidewalks. And there was a moment that we were contemplating to do something on the sidewalks, but probably we'll never get permission to do anything on the sidewalks. And of course, the only things we saw artificial, we cut out from any natural form, is the Central Park. We're surrounded with the rectangular city blocks, hundreds of them, controlling the entrance of that man-made park, actually, that fairly man-made park. and they have a walkway that people walk. And this is why I decided to do the gates. And in late 70, and basically we do we involving the walking of the people. Basically, we build a rectangular gates. No, it's not a arch. It's a gates reflecting the footprint of the 100 city blocks around the Central Park. And from the horizontal part of the gates, we install fabric moving in all directions, reflecting organic shape of the walkway and the leafless tree of Central Park during the winter time. I should say very important that all these projects, they're also season projects. They happen particular season of the year. Like if Central Park was a winter project because we have the leafless tree. To the summertime, Central Park is like forest. Miami project was spring project before the hurricane of Miami come later in the season. And each this project they designed for a particular time of the season.
Right, and the gates, I mean, nobody uses Central Park. It's not nobody, but fewer people use Central Park.
Yeah.
But that February, Central Park was full, I mean, full at all times, in the snow.
I remember, Jean, I did some study with the snow, simulating the snow, and Jeanne-Claude was saying, and we're not sure that we have snow. We have a snow twice during this
and it was
16
gorgeous.
days.
Yeah, it was orange against the snow. So that's one of the questions, is how do you choose your colors?
The color. The color really is something come very late. The color is not right away. The fabric is important part. From there, the color come little by little. But I use the example of the Umbrellas project, who was a project simultaneously and two parts like a diptych, like pentic and two parts, involving that early 90s, the two richest countries was Japan and United States. We did the project on the West Coast because it's tilted to Pacific Rim, not the East Coast, that the people from Japan in California can travel easily. And the project was scheduled to be in the autumn. In the autumn, basically, we have a dry landscape in the sunny time in Southern California. There was sun, there no rain in summertime in California. And that dry landscape, we choose the yellow. When the Japan during the summer and October is full of water, it's raining all the time, and a very wet landscape, full of water, we choose blue. Of course, there variety of yellow, variety of blue, and there was a 90 umbrella standing in the Sato River in Japan, and this is why to choose what yellow or what blue, we build life-size umbrellas to choose from far away how they look wet, how they look dry, etc.
And how about the saffron for Lake Iseo?
The Lake Iseo was basically natural come from the richness of the water. The richness of the water. And in some way, I try to find color who can change, become orange or wet when it's wet by the fabric. In the same way, it was very important to have some color who can reflect the sun so much that he is really like a mirror. And was acting like that, we were all burned by the sun of reflecting the fabric.
Whereas in Paris, there's not so much sun a lot of the time.
Yeah. Now the point of project was choose that color of the it's called because the entire city was built on color from the Ile-de-France of the digging in the ground, and this very elegant color. And actually, some critics were saying that. When the wrap powder was done, you cannot see from far away. It was really wrapped because it was melting with the colors of these elegant other buildings in Paris, the Louvre and the island of the city. But I purposely used that very elegant beige, actually straw colors, like a straw, dry straw color, and to melting with the stone in Paris. What here is different because it's structured totally not related to other building. It's standing alone, and I like to have this commanding metallic quality of silver with a bluish reflection and red ropes.
Well, that's unusual that the ropes are a color you can see.
Yeah, of course, that is the color of the flag of France. No, but
patriotic.
But it should be should be very exciting. And we're just now preparing life-size tests to some section to do it in June in Paris.
So here's a question about what happens to the fabric when you take it down.
Of course. Now, you know, you should understand, I've said before, educated Marxist, and I use the capitalist system to the very end. Another how this project they finance is, we have no time to explain that, but it's not secret. You can go to the Harvard Business School, and they have a case on me, Jeanne-Claude, how we're financing this project. But but you know, because it's built by corporation, all the projects they built by corporation, non-profit, real corporation who pay taxes. And that corporation work like any business entity, buy material, resell the material, do all kind of businesses, and everything in this project try to be reused or recycled, make money. Of course, we will never recuperate. The most expensive part of the project is the labor. Labor is horrendously expensive. You should understand, when the project exhibit, we hire so many people. Umbrella's project cost $600,000 a day. After 14 days, Jeanne-Claude is like, oof, is enough. You know, and this is, but we cannot recycle the labor. But everything we try to, the moment we start to buy this material, aluminum, steel, fabric, the fabric is the less expensive to reuse. We not use the normal clothing, we use industrial textile, who come from petrochemical industry. We use for a variety of purposes, for farming purposes, for construction purposes, many water filters, all kind of things. And we sell the fabric right away for that reason. But a much more expensive value. When we did the gates project, one of the most expensive parts to build the base for the gates. We need to have a 15,000 base for the 7,500 gates, and there was steel. We bought 5,000 tons of steel. You don't know what is that? It's 2/3 of the steel of Eiffel Tower. Now, we bought it as steel in Pennsylvania, and we sold that steel before we use it for the gates to the Chinese. You understand? This is the and we bought aluminum, so many other things, they are not visible. They're inside in the poles. That is everything we try to sell because it's valuable and it's common sense to recuperate the money.
Well, and also Central Park, the Conservancy demanded that you do it in such a way that there was nothing left. There was you did no damage at all to anything.
Yeah, exactly. But that is for all the projects. We need to sign, we have insurance, we have all kind of regulation. For example, for the Arc de Triomphe is the National Historical Monument. You have tremendous complex precondition the building to receive all the materials and not damage the sculptures, the relief built in the 19th century. They're part of the way all the time we are working in the man-made structure or even in the countryside to respect, to be compiled with all the security, legal things and paying rent, you know. I hope you understand. We donated $3 million to Central Park Conservancy. So to have the Central Park for us for 3 months. You know, when this project happened, we are renting the land. We rent the water in Lake Iseo, we rent the Ponyhof, we rent the Reichstag. Basically, we are renting because nobody should use the project for commercial uses. Like Central Park can be take your dog, you can run a marathon, running, but no filming, no television, no any activity in Central Park during the Gates project. The same things with the wrap Reichstag. I remember when we wrapped the Reichstag, there was a line of special things. The three tenor tried to sing in front of the Reichstag. All kind of things, but we rent also near 5 kilometers Lake Iseo, that nobody can be around to do other things, that we have our project for these precious 16 days.
Right, and you know, and for that project, you had divers and people who knew how to run
Yeah,
boats and
yeah.
things, and you have mountain climbers for others. But also, some projects like the gates, like the umbrellas, lucky people get to be laborers on these, and they get paid minimum wage,
Yeah.
and they get fed extraordinarily. You always make sure that they're fabulous lunches. This one for the gates, it was in the boathouse.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be true for the Arc de Triomphe, is it? You only
The same
can have
thing. No. But we employ the same team. There will be normal construction people, and there will be much lesser number of the service people around the clock. But also, you know, when the project is exhibited in the area of the project, we have a monitors. Called monitors. They have uniform. We have here also, and they do. What important is that they give explanation to the foreigners, to the people, and also we cut millions of samples of the fabric that we give free to the visitors, and we guiding the people how they go approach the structure, how they. In the case of Poner was different because it was long bridge, but here we will have a lesser number of monitors, but with the same type of organization.
So can people here apply to be monitors?
Workers, of course, they can apply. The question is, we're in a very early stage of that process. Around the clock, they're not there. We need to have a non-stop people working around the clock, yeah.
So how did they apply?
No, but not yet. This is the... no, we just putting... We need to just find the workers who will make the project now.
Right, who
Yeah, we need to find that.
the industrial.
Yeah.
So there's a last question. How do you feel after your temporary projects are taken down?
I used already, Jeanne-Claude said, oof, is over. No, really, they're so draining. We barely sleep. It's like a non-stop, you need to be responsible for everything. And if the project is long, you have a much more going around. If the project is very public, of so many things, it's so much around the clock. But it's like something inoubliable, in French called, unforgettable. And I remember vividly, Jeanne-Claude and myself were always referring our passé like, it's the time of Valley Curtain. We know it's 72. The time of Running Fence is 76. Like the time when that project happened, what we were doing, what was doing everything. And this is why this project, they're unforgettable for me, and they're part of my existence. You know, simply I cannot forget it.
Well, see, walking on water. Thank you, Christo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.